And start recording. We are now recording.
Okay, call to order the Lowell City Council special meeting for tonight at 7:03. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bennett,
Here.
Councilor Harris,
Here.
Councilor Stratus,
Present.
Councilor Drutt,
Here.
Councilor Myers. Here.
Okay. All present. I'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
Stands one nation under God.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Okay, we have a number of topics for tonight. We have some presenters. Do we have any changes or additions that they see needed for the agenda tonight? Not hearing any, not seeing any. Any public comments? You didn't have any written, did you? Nothing. Okay. Not seeing or hearing any public comments. Then we'll move right into the new business. Mr. Cottle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Councilors. Good evening. The first item is a brief introduction and presentation by Kurt Wilson of Wilson Architecture regarding the request for proposal process for the Maggie Osgood Library renovation project. Mr. Wilson and Wilson Architecture were one of the proposers for the request for proposals that we solicited for the library renovation project. His firm represents the firm that the selection committee is recommending, and I asked him to be present tonight to introduce himself to the city council at large. He has a brief introductory presentation. At that point, he's prepared to answer any questions that city council might have about his proposal. Mr. Wilson, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. And thank you, Council, for inviting me tonight. And I'm very excited to be selected and looking forward to working on the project. So my name is Kurt Wilson, and I'm an architect in Eugene. And my firm is Wilson Architecture. I was a partner in another firm in Eugene for a long time, and did something for just wrapping up something I've done for a couple of years outside of actual architectural practice. But Wilson Architecture is kind of a startup firm right now. Got a few projects going on, so very excited. So just want to introduce who our team is. And by the way, I wasn't planning on sharing screen, just for a brief introduction. Thought it might be a little bit quicker, but if anybody who was in the interview wants to see any information, just let me know and I can share the interview presentation again. So, you know, the team that we put together for the proposal was team selected to specifically bring the right resources to the project to help both make sure that we're doing the right renovations to the building and also bring in the resources of a library operations planning. So in addition to my firm, and I will be the architect, and I'll lead the team and do the primary drawings and the primary design work. Penny Hummel of Hummel Consulting is our library consultant. Penny is a career librarian who has the last few years has transitioned to library operations consulting. And she brings a really great perspective and is a resource to help give some direction as to various options and models for operating libraries. We have a mechanical and electrical engineering firm, Colbert Engineering. Their main office is in Bend, but they have staff who's going to be associated with the project in both the Corvallis and Eugene locations, and they're involved to help look at the building, make sure that we all understand where the mechanical electrical systems are in their useful life, and make recommendations as needed if there are areas in the buildings related to those systems that need to be modified. Electrical will also have some assistance in just simply, making provisions for changes for layout, power and data and lighting related to library operations. IE Engineering is a structural and a civil engineering firm based in Roseburg, and they're on the team primarily for structural. And to back up a second in terms of what we're planning to do we recognize completely that the conceptual study was done in 2019 and the report was wrapped up in 2020. And that was a very public process, and there were a lot of community members who were involved in that. And it seems to me, based on all the information that I have and I've looked at, that that's going in the right direction. But we also, and it's good, it's the right direction for this particular project and building. However, we want to make sure that part of the reason for bringing this team of consultants is that we're early on taking a good solid look at the building and just make sure that we're not surprised by anything that we may not see at a first glance. And so our structural engineer's role will be to be on the team, and they will do a brief site evaluation. And if they don't find anything concerning, and right now the plan and the conceptual plan does not really change the structure, so that might be the end of their involvement. Or we may find something that we're not, we have to address, or there may be something that changes in the plan. So having the structural on the team is important, just to be a resource available to us. And then, there is some identified site improvements. The paving at the building is what's referred to as, it's pretty alligator at this point. It's breaking up and it needs to be addressed. That could be an overlay coating. It could be actually a little bit of grinding the surface and adding a little bit more, or, maybe, I don't think this is going to be the case, could need some more, replacement, full dig out and replace. So we want to have a civil engineer available to help us with that. And there may be some other things on the site. So the purpose of putting that design team together was to make sure that we had the key advisors on the team ready when needed, and to provide those resources. But if they're not needed, they won't be that involved in the project. So, the other key part of our proposal and our approach was to, at the beginning of the project, to get as much information both about the building and confirmation about the scope of the project. And so that the confirmation of what the project is, the viability of the budget, and all those things are really understood. So what we're proposing here, and now what Jeremy and I are planning on, is that we would relatively quickly after the contracts are signed, we would have the design team come out and do a site evaluation. And shortly after that, we would then do what I refer to as a visioning workshop, where we would bring key members of the design team, key members from the city that we'll call a steering committee, and then some additional community volunteers, possibly people who are either past or future or interested in being library volunteers, to just talk about the decision, kind of how the library was previously run, the decisions of buying the library, the background that went into the conceptual report. Make sure that everybody who's participating moving forward understands all that information, so they have that as their knowledge moving forward. And if, with the involvement of Penny Hummel, our library consultant, if out of that conversation it makes some sense to kind of move one way or the other, we're in position to do that. But we want to do that right away so that we can make sure that as quickly as possible we understand the scope, and we're all know it's going in the right direction. Budgets always in construction is just simply a challenge. The budget was done in the end of 2019 and 2020. The world has changed significantly since then. The construction market has changed significantly since then. You're probably all aware that materials, simply framing materials and whatnot, is just significantly more expensive than it was. Now, we don't expect to have a lot of framing materials, but there's prices tend to go up together. And so understanding that our budgets continue to make sense early on the project is really important to managing a project and making sure that expectations and all that kind of stuff are just really thought through and considered and planned from the beginning. And then once we get moving, we'll also want to make sure that we have opportunities during the design process to bring the community in and give community updates as to what's going on. And we expect to do that a few times after that visioning workshop, before construction starts. And then as construction starts, projects tend to be a little bit of a spectacle. People like to kind of see what's going on, and there'll be other ways to give people updates. But making sure that the community is engaged and understands the project, and this is the community's library, and getting as much excitement and enthusiasm about that into this process is part of what we're really trying to accomplish. And then, you know, I can't stress this enough, and I've been an architect for a long period of time, and managing budget is hard, but it's your expectation of the project. And you know, I look at the budget as a day-to-day decision-making tool, so that we don't, if we start to go afield a little bit with a design that maybe starts to stray from the budget, we don't want to be doing that very long, and we want to make sure that we're utilizing the budget to your full benefit. And that's really a basis of how we think about projects and moving forward here. So, and that's just a quick summary of how we talked about the project and our proposal in the interview. And I don't want to take too much time here. I want to make sure that you have time to ask questions if you have any before we move off the agenda items. So with that, I'll wrap up my presentation and see if anybody has any questions.
I'll start off. I was part of the selection committee for the group, and very impressive presentation. Very impressive. The library lady that is on his staff. Anybody else on the council? No, I'll step aside. Gail?
Well, yeah, I was on the committee as well, and I wanted to stress really what Kurt has already said. What I heard from Kurt that really impressed me was his obvious understanding of needing to work with the community. And he understands small communities. So that really excited me. The other thing that Kurt's company gives us is that opportunity to work with a librarian. That's unusual. That's not out there all the time. Quite frankly, Kurt, I called Yachats, and that was actually about Penny, because she had worked with Yachats is like us, a small town, and they have a totally voluntary library, and they were upgrading and doing some things, and I got literally raving reviews out of them. I've done a lot of reference checks in my career, and I can't say that I've ever heard one any better. And so on top of that, they only did that piece with her. And so when we look at the price, and that includes the librarian, it seems pretty reasonable to me, because Yachats shared, quite frankly, I have the emails that they spent $13,000, and she did we can look at her report. They sent me the report she did, and it was incredibly thorough. So I think that gives us a piece with Kurt's company that is pretty exciting, because yes, we need our building, we need it right, and we need it well designed. But if we have the opportunity to work with a librarian who can come in and really help our folks put that thing together and set it up. I mean, she even works with them in terms of the hierarchy and who's in charge and you know, the chain of command and the whole 9 yards. So I just wanted everybody to understand that there were a lot of good reasons that we were very impressed with Wilson Architecture. So I just wanted to share that with the rest of you. Thanks.
Thank you. That's good to hear. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, not seeing any, not hearing any. Thank you, Kurt.
Okay. Thank you very much. I look forward to working with all of you. Have a good evening. You have a good rest of your meeting.
Yeah, we will. Thank you. Next up is the first reading approval of ordinance 304, an ordinance adopting the vacation of a slope easement located on map and tax lot 1901 1413 04 900 of lot 71 or 51 on the second edition of the Sunridge Division. Mr. Connell, you want to speak to this first?
Yes, sir. Our planner, associate planner with Lane Council of Governments, Henry Hurley, has prepared a staff report for City Council.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for having me tonight. So I know usually I, have PowerPoints made and everything, but this proposal is pretty small and it will not take a long time. I'd just like to clarify, we are, this vacation request has been approved by Planning Commission, and City Council has the authority to take final action. So City Council is asked tonight whether or not to accept Planning Commission's recommendation for approval. Jeremy, if I could just share my screen quick, I just want to talk about the site plan and show them the general area in question.
You should be able to do that right now.
Okay. So the slope easement is the northerly 10 feet of lot 51. It'll be the westerly 58 feet, as you see here.
Your presentation showing.
Oh, sorry. 1 second. Oh my goodness. Share screen. Okay, here we go. This is the slope easement in question. It is the northerly 10 feet of lot 51 of the westerly 58 feet. Like I said, Planning Commission held a public hearing on this matter, and they accepted oral testimony from the applicant. They recommended to pass it on to City Council for approval. If approved, this will be adopted via an ordinance, and it will remove this slope easement from this recorded plat. The city engineer and Public Works have both reviewed the proposal. They have no issues with it. They did have some questions to begin with, but those have all been resolved, and those are contained in the staff report and the findings. There are 2 conditions of approval that I am recommending that you consider. The first one is that any potential development that occurs on this lot to be in conformance with the hillside development standards. The code is already going to require that. I'm just adding that in there as kind of a safety net. And the applicant is aware that those standards will apply for residential development. And the second one is for the applicant to cause this slope easement to be recorded at Lane County Deeds and Records. That will actually show it removed from this plat. So I do recommend that City Council accept Planning Commission's recommendation for approval. And Mr. Mayor, I believe the applicant is here to speak about the proposal as well.
Okay. We're going to do that now. We will do it in public hearing.
Henry, does the applicant?
Yeah, go ahead and open the public hearing and they can speak during that portion. That's a great idea. Yep.
Does anybody have any questions of Henry before I go into public hearing? Anybody in the council? The only one I had, Henry, and I sent it to you, that side of the street does have a sidewalk, so that sidewalk will continue there will be a sidewalk because that 10 feet is probably about the width, the biggest part of the width. I think it's 5 foot of that sidewalk, and then 5 foot probably is out front of the sidewalk.
Yes, I can tell you, Mr. Mayor, when a home does get developed there, the city will require a sidewalk to go in at the same time. And the slope easement will not impact the ability for the owner to build sidewalks.
Thank you. Okay, the regular session is recessed at 7:22, and the public hearing is open at 7:22. Oregon statutes require the council to hold public hearings on matters where the public can comment. Oregon land laws require cities to hold public hearings on certain types of land use decisions. Public hearings are dedicated to items of open consideration within a regular meeting for which public input is desired. The public will be allowed to make presentations to the council and give a reasonable opportunity to be heard. The item being heard tonight is adopting the vacation of the slope easement located on map and tax lot 1901-1413-04900 of lot 51 on the second addition to the Sunridge Division. Members of the council may, if they wish, ask questions of the presenter following their presentation. The main function of the council members this evening is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of the council with this public hearing to debate the merits of the proposed topics. The chair will then close the public hearing and the council will discuss the matter and render its decision. First, Mr. Call, do you have anything to add to what you said?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, any questions at this point from the council? Not seeing any, not hearing any. People wishing to speak on this matter will have time. Please start by stating your name and address. And Mia, I believe you wanted to present, so go ahead and start.
Thank you. Would it be all right with the council if I shared my screen?
Mr. Call? Yes.
So for the record, I'm Mia Nelson. I live at 40160 East First Street. And I am the applicant on this, but I don't actually own the property and I don't really have a dog in the fight at all. I'm just trying to be helpful. I sold these two lots 49 and 51 to Dan Fisher, and he is in attendance in the meeting, and I think he will speak after me. But when I saw what he had in mind for a house, I suggested that he ask the council for this action so that he could place his house 5 feet closer to the right of way. And so I want to show you why it's kind of necessary to know whether you should approve this. You have to know why would someone want to put their house closer to the road. And I've got a very crude sketch here. The pink house, or the pink is where he'd like to put his house. He's actually buying both of these lots. He's removing the lot line between them and the house is going to straddle the line. This blue is his proposed driveway, crudely. It's not exactly like this. I just put a couple cars in here for perspective. He's going to come into a garage from the side like this. This sort of patterned shape here, this odd shape, is a driveway easement. This existing house, actually, their driveway is on Dan's property, and they have mutual easements to allow both houses to use the same patterned area as a driveway easement. There are two reasons why he should put his house the way I've shown here and not farther down the hill. And by the way, this hatched area, I hope you can see. Can you see my cursor moving? I'm trying to show you. This is the slope easement in question right here, this cross-hatched area. And you can see his house is like halfway into it. That's the slope easement that we're talking about. It's 10 feet wide. And he would like to put his house 5 feet into that area. So I suggested to him that he get this easement vacated. So here are the two reasons why this is a really unusual situation. First is this street is strangely built. It has a side, it's only 21 feet wide instead of the normal 28, and has a sidewalk only on the downhill side. And that is because it's a very steep hill. We had permission from Lowell to do it that way to minimize the cuts and fills. And it's also, the street is pushed to the north, to the uphill side. I think you can probably see this, that the street is offset in the right of way. So there's a really big distance here. Here's the first line by the street is the curb, and then the next line is the sidewalk here. And the right of way is way back here. That's a lot farther away than normal in a street. And I'll show you a diagram in a second that shows the difference. But before I do that, I just want to point this out. There are 3 houses further down the hill that have already gotten permission from Lowell to go within 5 feet of the right-of-way line for this very same reason. And that's why I told Dan that he should come to you and ask for this, because the city's been very gracious about issuing these variances in the past. As a matter of fact, Mr. Mayor, I think this is your house right in the middle. And we've got houses on either side that also have the same. So you probably understand why this is a good thing. I have here, yeah, this is a plan from one of those 3 houses that shows the 5-foot setback that was allowed by the city. So we're just really asking for the same thing. Now here is a close-up of the engineering plans from Sunridge Lane. I'll decipher this for you. This 29.5 is the distance from the downhill right-of-way line to the center of the right-of-way. And then it's 20.5 feet to the northern line. So this shows that the street is farther away from the downhill side, and that's unusual. The second thing that is unusual is the hill is very steep, leading downhill away from the street. And that's really what causes this issue. Here is my drawing of how the street is different from a normal one. On the left, we've got a 50-foot wide right-of-way with a 28-foot street. It is 11 feet from the street to the property line on a normal street. And then you have a normal 10-foot setback to the house. So that gives you a 21-foot distance from the street to the house. That would be great if we could achieve that here, but this request won't even get it that close. This is a drawing of what we would get with being able to move 5 feet closer. You can see here that we're 19 feet from the street to the property line as opposed to 11. So it's 8 feet farther just to get to the property line. We're asking to go 5 feet from the property line to the house instead of 10. But even with that change, it's still 24 feet from the street to the house with the change, which is still 3 feet more than it is for a normal street around Lowell. Here is sort of a graphic, very crude, but my attempt to show what happens if you have to push a house farther down the hill when it's steep like this. So this blue drawing represents what we could achieve on that lot with being able to use a 5-foot setback on the front. And this little blue triangle here shows about how much fill you'd need on the downhill side. This red shows if we slid the house 5 feet down the hill, you can't just lower the house to match the slope because it will make the driveway too steep. So you almost have to keep the house at the same height as it was before, but now it's 5 feet farther down the hill and it's lower down below the house. And so you see this red triangle shows the size of the fill bank relative to if we kept it 5 feet closer to the road. It's about 3 times the size and volume, and it goes 9 feet farther down the hill. That's really the problem here. And this is what happens if we push the house farther down the hill. This whole area along this lower driveway, this is an access way to his shop on the downhill side of the house. That is going to go 5 feet lower and is going to make a really big and ugly retaining wall all along this route here. And it's going to push this driveway down into the bottom of this easement. All of this is going to move closer to this house here. And it's going to move closer to this house here. And it's going to be uglier because it's going to be taller. In the meantime, it's not going to do any favors to anyone who's trying to see over this house from above, because that house is going to be pretty much the same height, but it's going to be farther away. And that means it intrudes into the view more. So that is why it would be good. This is one of those things, there's no losers here. If we do it this way, there's no downside that I've been able to identify whatsoever to doing this. I did hear someone ask, this is just a rumor, but someone asked, would it be bad? Would people be able to see around the house? And I think it was a misunderstanding, thinking that we wanted to put the house like right up against the sidewalk or something, like 5 feet back from the sidewalk up here. That's not the case. The house is actually still way back here. And I just put a little car in here for perspective. And this little red triangle is the clear vision area that is required by your code. And you can see there's absolutely no issue. This is the space that has to be kept clear to allow people to see when they're pulling out. And I've just excerpted here a copy of your code that says that all properties shall maintain a clear triangular area at street intersections and driveway street intersections. The 2 sides of the triangular area are 15 feet at street intersections and 10 feet at driveway street intersections. So that's what I've drawn here, is a triangle with legs that are 10 feet long on each side. That's all that's necessary to see whether a car is coming. So I hope that I've shown that that isn't any sort of an issue. Finally, I just want to explain sort of what is a slope easement and how did this property come to get this on here. And this too is an unusual situation. So this all happened back in 2005. That was the year that we platted both the second and third phases of Sunridge. And this third phase was different than usual, than is usually done. Normally, the city requires the streets to all be installed before it will sign off on the plat. In this case, for this third, phase 3, the city allowed us to record the plat and create lots before we had done any of the work. And so we had to sign a pledge, promising that we were going to do this, and if we didn't, then the city was going to do it at our expense. So the city, though, then had to make sure that in the event that we defaulted, that the city would be able to build the street. And this area that has this slope easement was an area that required dirt to be put there, to be built up to hold up the street because it was a low spot. Normally, that's all done before the city signs off on the plat, so these easements aren't necessary. There are many other places in Sunridge where if we had not already yet either had the dirt there before platting it, where the city would have required a slope easement. And this is actually from the plans. I just wanted to show you these little lines right here. See these dots? That shows road fill going outside the right of way. So that's why that easement was required. Here is what it actually looks like on the ground. You can see it's not steep, not now, because there's been so much fill put there by us when we were building the road. This little box is the area where the slope easement is now. So it might seem silly, like why would you put the easement, but this isn't what it looked like before. This was a big hole. Here is another spot. This is right below the water tower on First Street. This is actually much steeper and there is a lot of fill here. This is all fill that was actually placed there in 1991 by the city when they dug out for the reservoir. We didn't have to put a slope easement here because this dirt was already there. So we were able to plat this without a slope easement. But my point for you is that if that dirt hadn't been there, there would have been a slope easement here too. Now that the road is built though, none of that is necessary anymore because it has served its purpose and it can go away. And if it doesn't go away, then Dan won't be able to build his house where he needs to. And that's why I hope you approve this, because there's no value in keeping this anymore. And that's all that I had to say. If no one has any questions for me, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Maya. You explained that very well. Thank you. That I don't have any questions myself. Anybody else in the council have any questions for Mia? Okay, not hearing, not seeing.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I just had one clarifying point. So
Okay.
the two properties, the two lots that we're seeing tonight, they requested a variance to the front yard setbacks and the solidification. So as you may be aware, you probably got notice in the mail, that variance request was appealed to City Council. So you'll be seeing the same information again on at least May 18th or May 19th is when that's going to be held. And I'm sure that you'll see a lot of the same stuff that you just saw.
Yes, I did receive that.
Okay.
Okay. Anything, Mr. Caldwell, you want to add to this?
No, sir, unless other attendees have public comments.
Okay. Have any- Yeah, okay, go ahead.
As the property owner, after speaking with Mia and my designer, I didn't realize before how important this is to my build. And so would really appreciate being able to build it the way is most effective for everyone. So your support would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, Dan, could you give us your name and address, please, for the record?
Yes, Dan Fisher. My address is 16842 North, South Howard's Mill Drive, Beaver Creek, Oregon, 97004.
Okay. Thank you very much. Does anybody on the council have any questions for Dan? Okay, not seeing any, not hearing any. Any other people are wanting to speak to this? Not hearing any, not seeing any. I want to go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:39 and reconvene the regular session at 7:39. Okay, what we have before us is the first reading for approval of ordinance 304. Does the council have any discussion? What we're going to have is we'll have a first reading. I'll read the ordinance, and then the second one was this one published like the other one?
This was published in the newspaper and posted in 2 public places.
So-
City council can pass this by reading the title.
Okay. Before we get to that point, does anybody have any questions so far for what we're doing? If not, every ordinance of the council shall be read fully in an open council meeting on 2 different days. Any of the readings may be by title only. If a copy of the ordinance is provided to each council member, and 3 copies are provided for public inspection at City Hall, and if notice of their availability is given by written notice posted at City Hall and 2 other places in the city, or by advertising in a newspaper of general circulation of the city. Were those all done, Mr. Cottle?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. A council member may request to have the ordinance read in full, or we may have the first reading and the second reading, if that's when we have that, by title only. Do we have a motion to have this reading done by title only?
I make a motion that we have this reading done by title only.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, good. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any questions before I do the reading? Okay. City of Lowell, ordinance number 304, an ordinance adopting the vacation of a slope easement located on map and lot, tax lot 1901-14-13-04-900 of lot 51 on the second addition to the Sun Ridge subdivision. Okay, we've had the first reading. Okay, what's the next council meeting? 18th?
Yes.
Okay, the second council meeting for this to be read in, this won't be acted on tonight, will be the 18th. Do we have a motion to have the second reading on the 18th?
I make a motion to have the second reading of this on the 18th of May.
Okay, I have a first. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to have the second reading on the 18th of May. Okay, thank you. That's all for this one, I believe. Do we have to take a motion on that? I'm sorry. Do we, don't want to delay that another 2 weeks. All those in favor of having a second reading on the May 18th, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Shit, did we do
Mr. Mayor,
I don't think we had a motion for the first reading, did we?
yes, Mr. Mayor, I would recommend doing that again.
Okay, the whole thing all over again? Okay, I left out a part. For the first motion for the first reading, I never called for a vote. So all those in favor of the reading for the first reading by title only signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, then we'll have the readings by title only. City of Lowell, ordinance number 304, an ordinance adopting the vacation of a slope easement located on map at tax lot 1901-1413-04-900 of lot 51 on the second addition to the Sunridge division. Okay, so we've had the first, we don't need to redo the second, do we? I don't think so.
No, sir, that was,
We've done the first
Okay.
and the second. We just did them out of order. Okay. So anyway, we're set up to go for the 18th of May. We'll have the second reading. And if approved, then it will be enacted 30 days after the second reading. Unless it's under an emergency, then it can be done in a shorter time. I don't know what the development time period for Dan and development, but if that works, then we'll do it as normal. If not, you can contact the city administrator and we can do it as an emergency action. Okay. I think we're finished with that one. Thank you, Mia. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I almost stumbled. Where is this thing?
A long way.
page 1,000,
Page what?
1,000. That's a joke.
Okay, I was hoping.
81.
81, thank you. I usually do that ahead of time, but I got distracted today. Okay. Number 3, the first reading approval of ordinance 303, an ordinance granting Douglas Service Incorporated, locally known as Douglas Fastnet, DFET, a non-exclusive franchise for construction, operation, and maintenance of a fiber optic communication system. Okay. Mr. Cobble, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the same ordinance that was presented at your regular meeting and at your previous work session. This was tabled at the last meeting. This has now been properly advertised in the newspaper and posted. So City Council has the option to pass this by title only.
Have the first reading by title only. Okay. Okay, since we don't need to read those 19 pages, thank goodness. I will accept a motion. First of all, anybody have any questions about this?
You gotta go to a public hearing.
Huh?
You gotta go to a public
Yeah, we
hearing.
gotta go to public hearing. First, we have a public hearing. Knock that out. Okay. We will recess the regular session at 7:46 and open the public hearing at 7:46. Again, Oregon statute requires the council to hold public hearings on matters where the public can comment. And public will be allowed to make presentations to the council. Do we have anyone wishing to speak for the Fastnet, either pro or con? Okay, not hearing any, not seeing any. Okay, folks. Okay, in that case, we'll be closing the hearing at 8:47 or 7:47 and reopening the regular session at 7:47. Okay. Again, we can accept the reading of this by title only. If someone so would like to make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we do ordinance 303 by title only.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay. We have a motion and second for reading of the ordinance 303 by title only. An ordinance granting Douglas Services Incorporated, locally known as Doug Fastnet, DFET, a non-exclusive franchise for construction, operation, and maintenance of a fiber optics telephone communication system. All those in favor of ordinance 303 signify by saying aye for the first reading.
Aye.
Okay, the first reading will be by title only, and City of Lowell ordinance number 303, an ordinance granting Douglas Service Incorporated, locally known as Douglas Fastnet, DFN, a non-exclusive franchise for construction, operation, and maintenance of a fiber optics communication system. Okay, we'll have the second reading if a motion is made on May 18th. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we have the second reading on May 18th of ordinance 303.
Okay, we have a motion for the second one. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor of the second reading of ordinance 303, ordinance granting Douglas Services, locally known as Douglas Fastnet, DFN, non-exclusive franchise for the construction, operation, and maintenance of a fiber optic telecommunication system, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay.
I remember.
Not getting paid enough. Okay, now we're on to number 4, motion to authorize the city administrator to approve an estimate 8138 with Graham Landscape and Design, Design for the amount of $5,000 for irrigation installation repair of Paul Fisher Park. Mr. Cottle, please.
Yes, sir. We city council can adjourn the special meeting and go into the work session now where we can consider these work.
Okay,
I'm sorry, I have an outdated agenda. My apologies. You are correct.
did I close it?
You're good.
No, sir. What we have is an estimate with Graham Landscape to do repairs at Rolling Rock Park on the irrigation system. We had a couple landscape firms come out there and examine the system. One firm provided a quote to completely repair the system. Another, we have tried over the past 3 to 4 weeks to get them to provide us something firm in numbers. And the proposal from this firm is to repair the system and to do some retrofitting of the heads. The price that they have of $5,000 is a conservative assumption. They're thinking that it's possible to complete the work for less than $5,000, but this would cover us just in case. We are asking for your approval so that we can go ahead and get started on this project. As we understand, it is a priority of City Council and the Parks and Recreation Committee. Mr. Baker has been working with this company. Do you have anything to add on this?
Just one point of correction. It's for Paul Fisher Park, not Rolling Rock Park. Yeah. And like the CA said, this would be a complete repair of the system. They believe the current system is in good shape. They have been on site several times to test the existing system. So this would be installing new heads and getting the system working at full capacity.
Have they checked the wells down there yet?
Would you want me to talk on that, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Yeah, so today actually we had somebody on site verifying the depth and the water level of all 3 wells. There was 2 wells in Paul Fisher Park. And as we know, there's one in Rolling Rock Park. These numbers were essential to be able for 2 different outfits that we solicited to provide quotes, appropriate quotes. And as long as we receive those quotes, we could have somebody here as early as next week on site to do the actual 4-hour testing of the wells to see what we would need pump wise, treatment wise, to get us a better understanding of it. So at time that the irrigation system with the repairs that Graham is proposing, the system will be up and running. It currently will be on city water. But yeah, the intent is to be able to use the wells. So looking pretty good at Paul Fisher, 1 6-inch, 1 8-inch, 340 feet deep, and both of them, the water level was only about 6 feet below ground level. So as long as all that looks good, should be a pretty viable option for us.
Super.
And we're hoping to see those. I'm kind of expecting to get 2 quotes tomorrow for those. I do not believe they're going to be very high. I did get a verbal amount of $900 for each park. So I think that's a pretty good close. And then I have rough estimate quotes from another vendor. So we did request them in writing. So I'm thinking we should have something within end of the week, early next week, and get these ready to roll so we can make a plan of attack.
Max, I have a question. Going forward with this, we got the manifold about, 50 yards or whatever from the wells. Is that a problem? Or do we just run an electrical circuit out there from a timer or whatever for each one of the circuits they're going to do?
Yeah, so the current system that's installed at Paul Fisher does have remote valves that are actually battery powered. These work pretty well, so there will be no need for the electricity there. Once the repairs are done, if approved by Graham, we can start irrigating. A little bit of dialing in, it's not going to be perfect from day one, but a little bit of dialing in, we'll be irrigating immediately. As far as the wells at both parks, we would need to pull, as we get a plan together, we would need a separate electrical meter connection for both of those. Typically, well pumps are 3-phase. City Hall and both sets of bathrooms are currently only single phase. Just to get the volume we need. So
Lane Electric can do that though, right?
that's right. Yep. Lane Electric can actually do the meter, and we can hire an electrician to do any other work.
Are you going to put that underground? I don't think it'd look very attractive having the wire strung overhead.
Yeah. So pretty confident at Rolling Rock Park, we can either have everything in the ground or, in the back of the stage. Paul Fisher, all kind of depends on the tests. That's why we need to get them tested. We could have to set maybe a temporary holding tank. So, pump to the holding tank and then irrigate from the tank to be able to get the capacity and the gallons per minute needed that we currently have with the city water supply. We have very high PSI here in the distribution system and very high gallons per minute. So in order to replicate that with the wells, there is a possibility of an above ground tank. So that would go in a shed. We can put the water meter there. The electrical meter, the tanks, and then the appropriate pumps. And depending on how testing goes in the water, possibly some filtration for some unknown. We'll just have to see how it goes once the testing starts.
Sounds like you got it well in hand. Anybody else have a question for Max or Ms. Cottle?
Tim has his hand raised. Tim?
Tim?
Yeah, Max, I want to step back a little bit. I think we need to evaluate the three phase versus the single phase. I don't think what you said is exactly reality. I think that many pumps operate on a single phase system, 240 volt system, and that we need to evaluate the cost savings of efficiency of a 3-phase system versus installation versus a single phase. I would really doubt that many things in that part of the city have a 3-phase option from Lane Electric really easy. I'm guessing within the city, maybe like up at Tumac, they might have some 3-phase, possibly down at your guys' plant, possibly at the school. Not much 3-phase around the city of Lowell in terms of infrastructure developed. And I know that requires extra support from the utility company to provide 3-phase service. This isn't a giant municipal irrigation project. It's a good sized project we're irrigating, but I feel that the capacity of a 240 volt system single phase would be adequate to pump to the volume we need for this. So I think we need to look at that.
Yeah, so he did throw both options out. The 3-phase came up specifically at Rolling Rock. It is available there just because of the water plant, sewer plant, and the school. So and of course there's going to be associated cost, Tim. And then also it is more expensive, the minimum base charge on a 3-phase than it is a single phase. He said we can do it either way, but he's trying to. the one person I've talked to only so far. When they come out to do the pump test, they'll have a much better understanding of the size, style, and capacity of pump. The current well that's drilled at Rolling Rock Park was only 83 feet deep. So that was his recommendation, to really get the PSI up instead of the volume, as in gallons per minute, and do more zones. And then Paul Fisher was the exact opposite. Very deep well, 340 feet, 2 wells that we could take advantage of. So possibly a single phase system there with 2 pumps, after the tank. So, he was just throwing it out there, saying the possibility of 3 phase. But yeah, I agree with you. We have other wells in the system that are single phase. But yeah, yep, all that will be hopefully addressed during the quoting process after the 4-hour tests.
Copy. Thank you.
Yep.
Very good question, Tim. Thank you. And going back some 25 years, the reason there's 2 wells in Paul Fisher, if you already know, they dug them, and they, like you say, they're down 340 feet, which I didn't know they were that deep, but they're deep. And the idea being was one of those, for whatever reason, they put both wells in the same spot, but they ran a line from Paul Fisher to Rolling Rock Park. One of the wells was going to do Paul Fisher. One of the wells was going to do Rolling Rock Park. Nobody kept records of where they put the pipe in the ground, so we don't have a clue. And that means that probably more than likely, any construction was done has cut those lines in any number of places. So, there's no need fire it up, because you're going to see, no telling, it could be a perfect line, but also it could be a half a dozen cuts in it, opening up here, there, and everywhere. So, and now we have a pump. We bought a piece of land that has a well in it. It's easier to just go with the one on the old Billy property. Okay. Any questions? So I guess we need a motion to start activity on the by the city administrator.
Tim has another question. Huh? Tim has another question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tim. You're not on my screen.
Sorry.
Go
So,
ahead.
83-foot deep well at the municipal property we purchased and added into the Rolling Rock view. If we find out during the testing process that well is not adequate to provide our needs for the irrigation systems and other things, I would imagine just irrigation at Rolling Rock, I think we need to evaluate the cost benefit analysis on possibly deepening that well. The $25,000 a year bill that I'm seeing based on providing city water to these 2 parks is scary to me. And I think we need to do anything we can to do that, because, over 10 years, that's $250,000. If we do find that the 83-foot deep well during the testing is not adequate, I think we really need to evaluate modifications to that well and what that would cost versus the ongoing cost of, let's just throw it in half and say $12,500 a year to hook city water to Rolling Rock Park.
Good point.
Yeah, that discussion has been made, Tim, because there's a very real possibility with that shallow, and it is a 4-inch. It is one of the oldest wells in town. I spoke with the former owner today, and it was a 10-gallon per minute well. Worked perfect for residential purposes. Not saying it's impossible for irrigation, but yeah, I did ask that just in the real brief conversation. And of course, it's always a possibility to either deepen or widen the well. Yep.
Okay. And that could be under the, would the city be doing that, or that's not included in the grant request? Anything having to do with the well, if I remember reading that.
No,
So
but
that would be us,
we could always try to,
part of the irrigation system.
we could always try to amend our application.
It just says irrigation, so that could be, we could try
Be
to,
anything.
I think so. Okay. Okay, I went off script there for a minute, so. Okay, do we have a motion to authorize the city administrator?
For Paul Fisher.
Yeah, go, yeah, for, to approve, the estimate for $5,000 for the irrigation system. So moved.
I make a motion to
Okay.
authorize the city administrator up to $5,000 for the Paul Fisher Park for the irrigation system.
We have a motion to authorize city administrator to approve the estimate 8138 with Graham Landscape and Design an amount of $5,000 for irrigation installation repair for Paul Fisher Park. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. Do we have further discussion? Okay, not hearing any, not seeing any. All those in favor of motion to authorize the city administrator to approve estimate the 8138 with Graham Landscape and Design in the amount of $5,000 for irrigation installation and repair for Paul Fisher Park, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any? I just saw on their estimate, they have glue pipe fittings and adapters. It probably should be glue. Yeah, not a clue. It's the last line of their, it's one of these things that's jumped out at me whenever I was, I didn't see it the first time around, and I know what they meant and everything like that, so we don't have to go on with it. Okay, we have a full night. Does anybody else have anything else before we adjourn for going into the work session? Not hearing any, not seeing. Do we have any public comment at this point?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. We'll give you time later, maybe. Okay. Okay, in that case, we're adjourned at 8:04. Do we need to stop the recording or just keep on rolling?
Keep on rolling.
Okay. Next up is the work session for Lowell City Council, Thursday, May 6th at 8:05. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bennett,
Here.
Councilor Harris,
Here.
Councilor Stratus,
We lost him.
Present.
Councilor Drock,
Here.
Councilor Myers,
Here.
Hold on. Okay, first up on our work session tonight, update on architect selection process for Maggie Osgood renovation project. Mr. Cottle, you want to pass this to someone?
Yes, this was placed on the agenda at a city councilor request at your last meeting. I'll give a brief update on the process and turn it over to city council for questions or comments. In March, the city council approved the motion to start a request for proposal process. Those proposals were due in April. We spent April evaluating the proposals, doing interviews. We are at a point now where the selection committee has followed up on references, evaluated proposals, and is making a recommendation on an architect with the goal of having a contract for approval at your May 18th meeting. That's a brief overview at this point. I'll be happy to take any questions or let city council discuss amongst themselves.
Gail, did you want to speak to this?
You mean as far as what we've selected?
Yeah, just anything you want to add?
Well, I think I probably jumped the gun and said kind of what I was thinking earlier, but I guess just again to encourage that I really felt like this company had that small town understanding, and they were very clear about working with the city. I was just really impressed with them. I just felt like they fit. I felt like the fit was really good. In fact, our whole committee felt that very strongly about that. And again, the librarian piece is priceless. I think that we would want to do that if we weren't doing any architectural stuff. I think that would be something well worth pursuing to really bring our library, give it that really great start and professionalism. So anyway, I think this is worth doing. I think they have a lot to offer us. And I think the other thing he spoke to was the budget piece. I can tell you that one of the things about what I heard in the difference between the two that did apply was in terms of the budget was one said, we didn't have enough budget. It was going to be really hard. And he said, we're going to work within your budget. His whole approach was different in my mind. So we know that budget is going to be tough. We know that prices are going up faster than we can move. And I think that, that this company will work very hard to get us the best for our dollar. So I don't know if there's anything else that Don and I can, or Jeremy can add, or if you have any other questions. I was the one that brought it up to do it tonight. We kind of did that earlier with having Kurt anyway, so this is a little redundant, but maybe you have more questions. Maybe there's another question you've thought of or didn't really want to ask at the moment. So other than that, we've probably covered it.
And I agree with you. The fit is the perfect word. I think that's what I felt too. It just, the librarian fit, she knew what she was talking about. She's done it for her biggest part of her life, and they understand. And like you said, Kurt had looked at our budget and he saw what our size of our budget is, and he was aware of going into it that how many zeros he could add onto his bill, and there wasn't much room. So very professional presentation by both, and we did get to speak with the librarian by both of them. So excellent. I don't know if anybody has any questions from the rest of the council or anything like that about what we saw and did, but okay. Not seeing any, not hearing any. Next up is the discussion for relocating City Hall. Mr. Connolly, you want to kick that off?
Yes, this is placed on the agenda at City Council request. In the agenda packet, you'll see 3 site layouts, 3 different options. The first is the library and City Hall plan from the community facility study. The second is the library only option from the community facility study. And the third is a revised library and City Hall plan showing separation of the City Hall and library functions, as well as a rearranged layout for both functions. This is placed on the agenda for discussion amongst City Council on and gaining consensus on which design option the City Council wishes to seriously consider as we move forward with this project.
I think we've all seen the presentation for what we're thinking of, what we're considering, how to separate the City Hall and put it into 2 different environments, one for the city business, one for the library, and it makes a whole lot more sense. The way it was before, it was going to be hard to conduct business, city business, and inside of a area where people were non-city. I couldn't find a good word. So, but anyway, I think the direction we're going right now is the correct direction, and it'll lead us in the correct direction for the future. Any other questions having to do with the city library?
I don't mean to be ignorant here, but I'm having trouble. Were the drawings in the email rather than in the packet? Because I'm not finding them.
The one that I scratched on the board that got
they're in the packet, Gail, but they're like way down there.
Oh, okay.
I had to download it twice to see them. The first
Page 105, 4 and 5.
right, page 105.
What are they?
Page 104 and 105 and 106.
Okay. A second here. I'm trying to. This thing never works.
I can screen share 2 if that would help.
Oh, I don't want to take up tons of time with this. I guess I just want to make sure that
We want to answer your question. There's no need, not, if we, there's no
Is
need.
this, okay, just quickly, because I don't want to, I've got them, but it's really having trouble with my screen, sorry. So are they all three in the library?
Yes. The first two do not show a wall in there separating City Hall from the library. And shows the wall in there separating them.
Let me break this up on the screen so everybody.
I got it. It's okay, Jeremy. I really do have it. I guess,
The one on 106 was my crude drawing on the chalkboard, so.
no, and I'm familiar with the way that it is in the library. And so am I understanding that we're fully settled on putting it in the library?
I don't
Or
think we've had
still discussing that?
that vote, but I think we've had a kind of a meeting to discuss it with everybody, but I don't think we've actually taken a vote that this is what we want to do, or.
And I don't know that yeah, I know this isn't the time to do that. So then my other question is, I think all the counselors have gotten to go into the library and see the layout and the ideas. Did any of our employees get to do that?
Yes, they had their weekly lunch over here today, and it was discussed during the lunch meeting.
Okay, good.
And there didn't seem to be any reaction. There wasn't any negative reaction, but they just kind of went, huh. So it's kind of left at that, is my guess. And whenever
Okay.
Joy listens to this, she'll probably have.
Well, I guess
No, I
say
think
this. I'm going to say this just to throw it out there. I've been a manager, and while I fully and am fully supportive of the fact that we have to make decisions based on what's the best decision, period. And sometimes that's not always favorable. However, I do want to take the time to interact with our employees and hear them and make sure they have a voice with all of us in terms of what their concerns are, so that we're assuring that, we're including them in this at some level. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to make everybody happy. I understand that, but I just want to be very inclusive. So that doesn't mean, we make a vote on that. I just think those things are important. So, we can do that going forward.
We'll do that preceding the design hearing or whatever meeting that we have with Kurt. But the main idea that I tried to get across today was with the wall there would be City Hall business over there taking place. There'd be a City Hall door, and there would be a library door, and there'd be library business being taken care of here. The library may go in there and use the table and chairs that's set up for a council meeting. But it was, and I specifically said there are two different entities. There'll be the Council City Hall business, there'll be the library business, and they're not.
Yeah, no, that's
they
good,
don't-
Don. Thank you. I just wanted to say out loud, let's all be sensitive and
No. We understand that.
we'll have more time to talk going forward. So we don't need to dwell on this now, but that was my thoughts. Thanks for listening.
Do you have any input from that meeting today, Jeremy? On your thoughts with the,
After you got back over there.
I think our city team is understanding and open to exploring the options. And I think as we work with the design professional and they prepare renderings and people can actually visualize what things are going to look like, that will help.
okay.
The wall
The
is,
temperature wasn't cold, in other words.
I'm sure it's gonna be fine, you guys. That's just
the
my
wall
thought.
makes it,
There's no criticism, or I'm not worried that, I just wanted us all to be thinking about that a little bit.
and,
Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
and I believe May 20th is, Joyce's birthday, so did you know?
May 20th.
Yeah, we got it. Okay, not hearing any other questions on that. Next is a discussion on brush clearing on the city properties located on tax map. And tax map. And I want to kind of kick this off since I was on the council whenever this first started off. There's about 900 foot of let's say 10 foot, 20 foot wide fire lane that's being requested. The main thing is the trail that they're doing now is probably, I'm going to say about 400 or 500 feet long, and it's on a pretty decent slope. It's say 15 to 30 degrees. We've got a new tractor. And so last year they was able to go in there, and mainly they're going there after the grass is dry, before it gets dangerous. And they go in there so they don't slide off the hill with the tractor, and they go back and forth with the nose pointed down, up and back, up and back, up and back. And they mow the grass below. The problem now with like the lot that we voted on, or we heard the presentation on tonight, was once you get over in that area, it gets very steep. It goes to like a good 45 degrees, and there's some drop offs in there just probably go to more like 60 degrees. There's stumps in there 2 feet around or better. There's boulders in there of that same type, and there's blackberry vines that's going to need to be cleared. This year we put in $2,500 in the budget 2021 to look at clearing that. I know that whenever Mr. Cobb was here, he went out to a landscaper and to clear that area once, which included a bunch of blackberry vines that were there whenever the property was donated, because there's no way they could have got drawn up in that one, right on their property lines that quickly and been that mature without them already been there. But anyway, as those properties go in, the city is going to have to work with the fire chief to make sure that's good. But we're looking at probably a 20-foot wide cut below those properties. This year in the budget, you saw there was $10,000 to do that. The other problem is once they get the brush cut, they're going to have to get it out of there. And some places, right now there's no houses on it, so they can come across those vacant lots without doing any damage. They're steep, I will grant you that, very steep, and to a degree dangerous. So we're not going to have our people doing it. There's not like we were given $10,000 at the time when we took accepted the donation, with the idea that the $500 a year would be used for mowing, and it would last for 20 years. There's $6,500 basically remaining right now. And so if we did that 10,000, I don't know, that would pretty well wipe all that out, or else we may just be at city expense and we accept the loss. Or the main thing is right now it's city property, it's not parkland. So that's the part about that. And the tree that was for the land below. And I don't know if Max or anybody else has any questions about that. Like I say, it's on right below Sunridge Development, down below my house. And we've had some people in town that's asked to, they're already asking, when's it going to be mowed? And like I say, you can't do it when it's wet, you can't do it when it's green, or you'll slip. The other thing is they're talking about tree thinning, and the tree thinning would be done in the railroad corridor park down below. And the biggest part of that parkland is down at the base of the hill. Some of it is up closer. The park is wider at the west end. And people remember the Burford's old house, and also Vernon Lamke's, which became the superintendent, which now somebody else has. But the Mark and Gwen White live in the Burford's house. Anyway, that forest comes right up to their property line. There's an access road next to the superintendent's old house, but whenever you get there, the access road leads you right into their backyard. So you're not going to drive a tractor across there. You're not going to put any heavy equipment probably in there. But the trees are on a cliff, downward slope, whatever, a big drop off, and they're right at the edge of their property. That there could be a potential fire hazard there. So we're thinking, I believe that it probably should go back to the Parks and Rec Department and maybe have them contact those homeowners to see what they want. They may want the trees left there, because even if you move the trees back 20 feet, 30 feet, whatever it is, you know, you're still right in the middle of a forest. So I think that needs to be worked by the Parks and Rec people, and they can, like I say, they can reach out and contact those people and see what they want and anything like that. But we're concerned with the safety first on all of these. Any questions about the thinning and brush clearing? I know it's a lot.
So are we exclusively discussing this? I know in the last city council meeting, you know, I mentioned that, you know, we need to have a focus that broadens out, that community wide, we need to have some awareness of, you know, fire prevention strips around a lot of properties. It's not just this area right here. I mean, I realize this is city property, but are we gonna look at this holistically, not just focus on one area? That might seem a bit, you know, kind of tunnel vision in terms of where our scope of work is. And I feel that other people within the city might feel like we're not addressing their hazards, but we're addressing other people's. And I think we need to have balance in that.
And I think you're right, Tim, in that this is city property, so we're responsible to some degree for the safety of it, I guess to a complete degree. But the rest of it, I think that we almost have to go to the fire chief or someone of that nature to say, okay, what is acceptable? And you know what? Some of these people live up here. They live in the inside trees all the way around them, and they're happy that way. If you go in there and start telling them they have to cut down trees, they may not agree. You know, they already have that option of cutting them down as it is. But you know, we can come out with a recommendation, what the city recommends for distance from trees, from houses. But I already know that whenever you cut down a tree and clear it, if it's a good sized tree, you're talking a couple $1,000s, and there's no way that the city can afford that. In fact, the thinning that was in the old plan that's no longer in existence, the 2007 parks thing that they spoke of, that's no longer in there. But the thinning that's in the railroad bed parks plan right now is for like small trees, invasive species, blackberry vines, things. It's only $32,000 for 7 acres. You know, for 7 acres, you're not going to take down trees, big trees or anything like that. It was the idea was to open it up so that people could go in there. In fact, whenever they do the thinning, open it up, there'll be more people going in, which could add to a fire hazard. But the main idea being is that it was to open it up, they put tables in there, benches in there, some interpretive things, you know, this is what this tree is, and it's going to put like $7,000 worth of plants in the ground for people to walk by. And, you know, it's kind of like at Mount Pisgah, where you can walk there and they have all the plants, so everything identified. but for 32,000 that was set up for that, there wasn't going to be a major tree removal or anything like that. I don't think that was ever discussed or considered. It was just to open it up. And also the other thing that I've heard on that trail is that women stopped using that trail when it got too overgrown, and because we have some an encampment down at the far end of it towards the Corps of Engineers. They popped over the hillside into a little ravine there about 50 yards from the trail. So you know, and then it just hasn't really been used that much. I've walked it a few times, but it's boggy. It's got water seeps out of the side of the mountain, and makes the trail all. You have to wear boots anyway. But anyway, go ahead, Tim. I don't know if I even answered your question.
A little bit. So I just would like to say that you know, it is a large scale. When we look at this in totality, it's a lot of work. I think we need to not lose focus on it. I think possibly developing you know, some steering committees, engaging as many people in the project as possible, looking at alternatives for getting work done that we might be able to minimize. I mean, try to develop a program both educationally and functionally to further the goal of maintaining fire resistance and resiliency to our community, so we don't end up in a boat like Blue River or some of the communities up on the North San Em. The awareness is out there. People are fearful. People don't want to see that kind of thing happen in this community. I understand those concerns. I don't think we can just go, okay, well, we just throw money at it and we don't have enough money to throw at it. Let's make sure we investigate. Is there any volunteer opportunities? Is there equipment that can be engaged? Is there logging contracts that can be engaged? There are a lot of other options that might be a possibility to further this. And when you say cut a big tree, well, that's one way. You take the tree out. What's the other way? Is you get rid of ground fuels. You get rid of ladder fuels that climb up to the trees. So there may be things short of, you know, wholesale clearing that results in some resiliency, at least added resiliency, and we grow and develop this. This isn't like just, you know, hey, we're going to work on this a little bit this year and then it doesn't happen again. This needs to be a program that we need to develop. And I think we need to throw some thinking into this to get something productive going. But it's going to be an ongoing effort. It has to be that way. But that's kind of what I have to say. Some other people have come forward to me and presented some of their ideas, which includes volunteering. You know, what do we need to do to engage volunteers? I realize there's insurance liability and risk involved in that. Is there ways we can mitigate that risk and liability, but still offer, you know, the value to having volunteers come in and help us support these activities?
No, I agree with that. In fact, we have some lots in town that are covered up with blackberry vines and stuff like that. To me, appear to be a bit of a fire hazard. You know, how do we get people to clean up their lots? You know, I don't want to pay to clean up that guy's lot down there, and I'm sure they don't want to pay to trim that tree out next to my place. So I think an educational package explaining what, and I think the bridge, the chief puts items in there, but until people take it to heart, it's you know, it's something we can. It's definitely something that you know, we don't want to just completely walk away from, but it's something I think that we need to have a plan, and we can get together with the council, the chief, whatever, and say, okay, you know, what's the best way to go for this area, that area, you know, for what the city owns, what the city doesn't own, just some good guidelines for homeowners in this area. That's probably a good way to go.
In terms of the city property, have we ever investigated any kind of a small scale logging and thinning project where we offset the cost of the project by the value of the timber sale?
No, probably because I think probably the Parks Department wants to keep the big trees, so it has a nice look to it. Whenever you have a park and And like we have Rolling Rock Park, the first thing we're gonna do is go out there and plant trees in it, and Paul Fisher. And then we go to another park and we cut down the big trees. So, you know, I like your idea of cleaning the undergrowth and cutting the limbs, you know, up, you know, 12, 15 feet high, so that it takes a while longer in there. But no, I don't think it has been done. I'm not so sure that we have enough good timber to justify a contractor bringing in all the equipment to do what needs to be done to get it out of there. We have a lot. We have oaks and we have some tall firs in there, but I don't know that. I don't think we've considered that.
I think that should be considered, at least to evaluate that, maybe get a timber cruiser to come through and look and see what we've got to kind of give us an educated guess on, because in a park, you don't want the density of forest that we have in this area, which also represents the fire hazard. You want some open spaces, you want visibility, you want light to be able to penetrate to allow other species to propagate. And that's, you know, I think we need to look into maybe that a little bit more.
Okay, I
Well,
think
especially with the way lumber prices are now, and they keep going up, it's probably more viable and attractive, you know, to little outfits to come in and do that kind of stuff.
And the logging operations now with some of the nice equipment they've got with rubber track cutter fallers, they can actually be pretty non-invasive in their logging methods. It's, you know, we're not talking, you know, getting in there with skidders and, you know, all kinds of high line stuff and things like that. They can go in and be pretty selective about the damage they're doing, the impact they have on the area, and getting some good value out of it.
Yeah. A lot of that's on the cliff side or embankment side, so there'd be some of those probably need to be taken out. The ones on the floor maybe want to be kept. I think starting with, I'd like to go back to the Parks Committee to see what they wanted, also where they want to start with that, which direction they support going, and then they can come back to us and give us an idea, because like I say, it is a park.
So I'd like to offer to the people that are coming to me and you know, communicating with me their concerns, that maybe they should engage and try to be involved with the Parks Committee, because that's the direction we're going with guidance for a path forward for this.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Next up, number 4, presentation of irrigation and well plan for city parks. Mr. Carlin, I think we spoke to this some, but you want to add on to it?
Thank you, sir. We've already covered a lot of what's involved here. I received a lot of information after the agendas went out and when I originally prepared them. Basically, we have a quote that was approved to repair the irrigation system. We're going to get moving on that. Max has talked a little bit about the well process. We have a very likely grant opportunity. A big component of that is irrigation at Rolling Rock Park. That could cover additional well work that needs to be done, as well as the irrigation system. So that's a general overview of the plan. We already covered a lot of ground. Is there anything else that we need to discuss?
I will say of the 400 and whatever it was, $1,000, almost $200,000 was irrigation and dirt and sod and things like that. So it's almost half of it. So. Okay, next up, if no other questions on that, okay, is follow-up discussion on site preparation activities on East Main, number 5.
This is placed on the agenda as city councilor request. At your March 2nd work session, city council first started discussion on what we want to do with the vacant house on that property since the tenants moved out at the end of February. The consensus at that meeting was to just hold off on doing anything, wait about 6 months, revisit the topic. If there's not much movement at that time or planning on selling the the lot, then we could look at re-renting out the house. There's been some discussion among city council on, let's go ahead and start our site preparation. Let's go ahead, or the window for conducting burn operations that could involve the fire department and training, that window was closing. So there's been some discussion on, let's go ahead, burn the house, clear up the debris, start preparing that site, and let's get it on the market and get it sold. So this is on the agenda so that we can revisit this and see if that's a direction that city council wants to go.
Thoughts?
Have we had any chance to negotiate any more on the price of the
By
piece
the way,
we purchased from the county?
Mayor Bennett and I met with Lane County Economic Development. That was,
2 or 3 weeks ago.
yeah, about 3 weeks ago in February. We had a discussion about working out an economic development bill. I sent them those materials, haven't heard back yet, so that's where things have left off.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we need to probably get going. I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around, if we burn that house down, what are our odds of getting everything together fairly quickly so we can actually sell that thing as one, it's ready to go.
We bought it for a large price so we could control it. And now the county wants to charge us a prorated amount for that square footage. I don't know if they will accept it, but if we burnt the house and we show them now, this is just open land, and yes, we overpaid for it, but it's no longer worth $350,000. Now it's worth a lot less. And if they're not going to go to zero, they're not going to give it to us, but maybe at that we could counter and say, instead of 45,000, we give them a counter. And if they don't like that, then we say, well, can we split halfway with you? With the idea being is if a business comes in there and settles, they're going to generate, be paying property taxes to the county. And it's to their benefit to help us get somebody in there that's going to pay the maximum amount of property tax. So that's my thought. It's wishful thinking. They may well say no, no, and no.
So even at that, the first move is to burn the place
I
down.
think so. Whether
I mean,
if we can get it done, the sooner I think the better. I don't know if you need a vote or anything like that, or direction from the council. I don't know if the
Jeremy,
council.
how much longer do we have on that loan?
On the loan, the principal is due in September 2022.
Okay, so we've still got a year and a half, roughly. Yeah,
like to see-
I mean, I hate to lose the opportunity to burn that down, because otherwise we're going to be trying to figure out how to get rid of that house.
Well, I think we should burn it down soon because the time frame won't let us do it until January again.
That's why I'm saying,
Yeah.
and if what if things come together before January and we're, then we can't get rid of the house.
Knock it down with the tractor and stuff like that.
It's a gamble. And we're not keeping the house anyway. The only thing we're giving up is the possibility of renting it. And I think we've kind of shied away from that because we really don't want to be landlords. And who's going to rent it for who knows how long? We really don't know how long we would rent it.
And it needed some upkeep before we could rent.
So, yeah, so we don't want to put money into it. Yeah, okay, sorry. I think out loud sometimes, you guys. So we probably need to, I would guess we just need to go for it.
I think so. Any other thoughts by anybody? Okay.
So I will contact the fire department tomorrow to see about scheduling a burning training session with them. Is that the direction that I'm hearing from city council?
Yes, sir.
Tim, you turned yourself off.
Tim, you're muted.
Oh, I went the other way. Do we have any options? So I know that this house underwent and I believe it was one of the St. Vincent de Paul low-income rehabilitation loans. Probably had some additions made to it in terms of windows and things like that. I hate to see good things burnt. Is there any opportunity to allow people or a place like Bring Recycling to come out and do anything in terms of getting stuff out of there that might actually benefit us? Because the chief's going to go in there and want to break all the windows out probably anyway. And, we don't we reduce the toxicity. Is there any way we can reach out to like Bring or some company like that or Next Step Recycling? I don't know who it would be to go in there and remove some of the stuff before we burn it, offer them an opportunity to do that at no cost to us, but yet, take care of some of that and reuse some of those materials.
Sam, I'll let you speak to that. I think you might be more familiar. I believe we did that with the one on Main Street.
No, they broke all the windows at the one on.
The one on Main Street had a lot more aluminum type windows in it and stuff. This one has all new vinyl windows, I believe, that were placed in it during that rehabilitation loan, things like that. There was probably an HVAC system that was installed, I think. There's just a few things that I don't see any reason. There's no value to burning them. It costs, it's more of a hassle for the chief to deal with.
They're going to have to take them out anyways. There's so many things they have to remove. So, I mean, the answer is always no unless you ask. So it's certainly worth an ask to Bring or Next or whoever to see.
There's a few people that do stuff like that,
Yeah, I mean.
Tim, could you forward me those people and I'll reach out to them? We can
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'll probably won't be able to get back to you until Monday or Tuesday, Jeremy. I'll probably have to do a little bit of research, but yeah, I mean, I'll try to look for some viable opportunities for some companies that might be interested in doing something like that. Yeah, Habitat for Humanity might be a possibility, things like that.
That's a great
Well,
idea.
and in the meantime, the fire chief can tell you exactly what he needs out of there in order to burn it. So we can kind of have that knowledge.
Okay. Okay, sound like we got a plan. Number 6, discussion regarding debt financing options to implement Rolling Rock Park Phase 1 improvements. Mr. Cottle, please.
This is also placed on the agenda for city council request. This is also something that I need some direction from on city council. I received notification 2 weeks ago from Oregon Recreation and Parks Department that our Land and Wildlife Conservation Fund grant was very likely to be approved. We would know in June, and they would have a grant agreement for us to approve in July. The amount is $214,243. That does require a 50% match. So for us to get the full amount, we would also have to put up $214,243. At this point, it looks like the most feasible option to meet that timeline is debt financing. So the first question that I have is discussion and direction from city council on if that is an option we are willing to consider.
I think we cannot do it. We have to.
Yeah. The Parks Plan had it in there, so, and that's the community saying that they wanted it,
I
So,
think
we
have an obligation to do it.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not, we
Yeah.
still need to
No,
go forward with that.
the thing, there might be some, it's 400 and whatever number of $1,000s that they have, and what we submit invoices and they pay us half back. Is that the idea?
That's right.
And so we would have a kind of a line of credit with the bank for whatever amount of money we need. We just kind of tell the bank we want $40,000 to pay this bill. They give us 20 back, and so we have a fort, and then we keep adding on. It's kind of like a home loan. As you do different stages and everything like that, your actual final loan is whatever it is at the very end. So why it's 214, whatever it is, but if we only spend 180, then our loan would be 180. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, it's,
Okay.
it's possible with the lender, once we explain to them what we're doing, that we could structure it that way, or we could just get a 400-something thousand loan and pay that off as we
Okay.
pay.
Yeah, okay.
Then get it back, a half of it back and have that other resource to do other things.
Have no prepayment penalties if they gave us all of it, and then we'd give it back to them and say, okay, here. Okay.
If city council wants to explore this option, I will shop around and let you know what lenders are able and willing to do.
Okay.
I
Because-
say shop around. That would be my vote. And I mean, at least rates are super good right now if we have to do it.
This is
And
the time.
then we can step back and look at all of our loans and what properties we have to sell and make a plan to knock out as much as we can.
Okay.
Okay, that gives me the direction on that. The second is they are going to require us to complete an archaeological study. As part of this process, they send out information to the various Native American tribes, and they review this and indicate if we need to complete cultural resource studies. They estimate about $10,000 for them to come out there and probe around. If that's okay with city council, I'll start looking at archaeologists and present that to you for your approval, and it's probably going to be June.
My opinion is we don't have a choice in the matter. When I read that thing, it pretty much says we have to do this. So the first thing we need to do is send them out to the bottom of the lake where they flooded it. To see what they can dig
The
out.
Corps does all of that, John.
I know, so we should be clear, right? We've already got it
The
done.
part of the
Well,
city
the bottom of the lake, and that's why you can't go out there and collect arrowheads and stuff, is because of all those cultural resource issues. Yeah.
Did they not say though, there really wasn't any tribal stuff in this area?
they passed through that. but they-
There was though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like some areas, but there's some.
Hey,
Okay.
Gail, let's not go speaking for the Corps now. You're a private citizen at this time.
Well, at least for the moment, Tim, I don't know if you know my new venture.
Uh-oh. We'll talk later. Actually, John, I'm having some gates put in up at Signal Point Boat Launch tomorrow. I got archaeological monitors there monitoring while I'm doing that digging up there.
So, yeah, and our hands are tied. If we want the money, we have to do it, so.
Yeah.
There's really much discussion on it, except, go ahead, Jeremy.
What we hope is they go in there, what they'll do is they'll go in there and do a small amount of just investigation. And then they'll go, yeah, we did or didn't find this amount of percentage of things in this area. This is the kind of monitoring we're gonna need. And, so there'll be like a pre-thing and then like an activity happening during any work that's involving with it, like trenching for irrigation or the electrical lines, maybe putting in trees or some foundation work for concrete and stuff like that. But that pre-check is going to be the one that's going to determine the scale of what happens down the road.
Right.
That gives me the direction I need. Thank you.
With another group that I'm with, they did an archaeological study, and what they did, it was a dirt parking lot. They went out in the middle of the dirt parking lot and they dug a hole in the ground to see what was down there. They found nothing, closed it back up and went away. So, and this used to be Kalapuya land, so they ran wild over on this part of the world. So I'm with, and another group I'm with, they remind me of that. Okay, we're up to other business items. Do we want to discuss the hanging baskets tonight?
Is Max still here?
Yes, Max.
Yes, I'm still here.
Hey, just a question, Max. I know you'd need some kind of drip line system or whatever. Is that part of what they're gonna look at, irrigation wise for Rolling Rock?
It can be. Yeah, I mean, if we put the sprinklers in, it can always be an option. Where are we thinking for hanging baskets? Like on the lights, or would this be something separate?
Down there, yeah. That was probably a best part or best place for them.
So all of the lights currently have water. And for the, hanging baskets, there's already city water available, each one of a lamp post.
Okay.
So we could, I mean, if we wanted to use well water, we could always have that added. I'm sure pretty easy. But there is available water. We could put little timers down there in the boxes, run the little, 1/4-inch lines up there.
Okay,
Great.
okay. That may be a consideration.
Tim has a
I-
question.
Another city I was at, they had a guy go around and he had a little tiny tank on the back thing with a pump, and he had a little J-hook thing, and he'd hang it up and squirt the plant, and he'd go to the next one and the next one. I'm not sure. It'd be a whole lot better if we just had something that was automated than have somebody to do that. I don't want to do it.
I'd like to mention to the rest of the council and the city staff that Jeremy and I have been working on some furthering of the citizens' desire to have decorations throughout the community. And one of the places that we're looking at placing these decorations is on those light posts or on poles and things like that. That's kind of the style. I'd like to make sure that we're coordinating these efforts so we're not having a conflict when we get to a terminus of either one of these, where it's like, oh, I can't put my the $600 reindeer on this post now because there's a plant on it. That we're working together to guide that, to make sure that maybe either the elevations will work together of where we're mounting these, or maybe designating every other pole for a plant, every other pole for a decoration, if that wouldn't work. Just making sure we're coordinating these efforts.
Yeah, if you go to Coburg, I just happened to drive by it or drive through it this last weekend. And they've got plants and their city banners all on the same post or light post there, going down through the middle of the city. So
My
it can be done.
my only concern is that we do also seem to have a problem with people not keeping their hands to themselves on other people's belongings. And so how would we maybe secure that so that we didn't end up having to replace 16 baskets of flowers that ended up in somebody else's yard or house or something, or other decorations?
Just electric. They grab it, they get zapped. It's not that hard.
Light up the pole.
There's one thing that Coburg does have that we do not have, is they have a whole police force. Might not be huge, but they do have, that is something they have. So just something else to keep in mind.
I think it'd be a good idea. We'd maybe look into that. Weed spraying and asphalt sealing at the library. Is that you or Max or what?
I thought
That
you were doing-
was a city councilor item.
Okay. Somebody want to speak to that? Was that me? It wasn't me.
I didn't put it on there, but is that not something we can work on through the library renovation? Or is it urgent?
That was in his presentation tonight to determine what they want, how they wanted to do the parking lot, either seal it, chop it up, redo it, whatever. I know we got something in the mail through Max that said that he was working with Jason over at the high school, and they're going to come over and maybe tar the cracks to prevent any further degrading of the parking lot. That would be done after the end of the school year, when they're going to do some work on their own parking lots. But yes.
Yeah, that was my only thought, that the school could help us out. Seems how, they used our parking lot for a year and a half.
Yeah. Okay.
I think another opportunity for some repair in that lot that might, because that lot, it's pretty extensive. The alligator cracking is pretty extensive. And when you talk, you're talking about like taking a crayon and running it around and tracing all these lines. I think that a slurry seal might be something we might want to look at.
Yeah, whenever that was what Kurt Wilson was alluding to at the as they finish up the project, that they would be looking at that. But Yeah, like you say, if you run around with the tar and you do the cracks, if they just want to put a slurry seal on the top of it, at least those cracks will have been filled up and they, you know, they won't be getting worse. Okay. Any other thoughts on the asphalt? How about police coverage within the city? Anybody want to speak to that?
Okay, I was the one that brought that up. I just wanted to start the conversation and actually, I think you all know we've had some pretty intense thievery going on, and a lot of, there's people on certain streets that have said they can't hardly keep their stuff, and we've had several vehicles stolen, trailers, and it's funny, this little town kind of keeps up on things and you don't know what's rumor and what isn't. But all that to say, I'm just seeing more interest. I'm on that Fall Creek Facebook. People are talking. They sleuth really well. They keep their names out of it. The last vehicle that was stolen, I just heard, was found in the same place in Oak Ridge that the previous trailer that was stolen was. And supposedly there is some investigation going on. It's so maybe there's a group and they're going to get them. But in the meantime, we've got some high interest going on. I've seen a lot of talk about I'd be willing to pay more. With that said, I don't think we can afford, I'm not talking about getting our own policemen necessarily, but are there some contracts with the sheriff department like Cresswell does? Or I see Mohawk has got a vote out now to get some funding for that same kind of thing. All I was going to say out loud is that maybe over this next year is a time that people might be interested, but it might, Jeremy, I talked a little bit because I saw what Mohawk was doing, and at that point it becomes a district thing because Fall Creek would be interested, so it wouldn't just be a city thing, and I don't even know where to start with that exactly, but it might be worth exploring, and it might be a time when people might say, yeah, we're willing to pay for this. I know there's a lot of work to be done and a lot to understand and know, and not sure what part we would play in regard to that being a district thing, kind of like the fire department. But I don't know, you guys, I know it's an ongoing unaffordable thing, and yet I think it's worth our having discussions and at least looking at some things, to improve things if we can. So that's why I threw it out there. It's, it's pretty bad right now. People are very concerned and it's frustrating. And my neighbors had their battery stolen a couple of weeks ago. I mean, it's just random stuff, but it's so brazen right now because people know they're going to get away with it. There's nothing anybody can do. So anyway, I don't know if anybody's interested or how we would go about even starting that discussion.
Well, I think another thing we can do as a city council is that we can push our concerns to the county commission and other levels of government, that maybe a private citizen is just a single person voicing their comment in a meeting, whereas possibly as a city, maybe we could do some kind of a resolution to where we're communicating our concerns and our observations of this widespread amount of crime that's happening. And, maybe that's something that'll be appreciated and helpful, maybe even functional too, because that's the problem is you're talking about crossing ordinances here between a city and an area. Where does the border end? I mean, do the people up Winbury get left out? Do the people at the top end of Big Fall Creek get left out? Where does it stop? I mean, really what it is it's Lane County. And that's where the sheriffs operate. And so maybe what really need to be looking at is how do we motivate changes in the sheriff's structure or funding to allow for more widespread sheriff's patrols and officers versus trying to go, oh, Mohawk's going to ask us to get an extra one for out here, then Fall Creek's going to ask for an extra one, and then Cresswell's going to ask for an extra one. What do we need to do as a county to facilitate more law enforcement, because it's not just Lowell that's seeing this brazenness, and it's not just the Mohawk Valley, it's everywhere. And so can we do anything as a city and a city council and an organization to push, motivate, direct, guide for a better resolution countywide in a, you know, a bigger manner?
We had a presentation about, at the Grange, I don't think it was just the Grange, I think public was invited about 3 years ago from the sheriff, and a year or so before that with the prior sheriff. And they came out and they explained, and it was also in the Mohawk presentation in the paper, that they have, I think, like 27 deputies. And they have, at any one time, they have 3 patrolling the whole county, all the way from Florence to the top of the mountain. So, and also the sheriff explained that once a deputy goes on patrol, he's got a list in his portfolio, whatever, that here's the contacts you need to make because there was problems. So he's going to go all the way down. So that's the reason you don't see them doing traffic stops. They're going from one incident to another incident to another incident. Usually there's blood involved. So it's tough that way. Benita tried to put in a police district, and the city and the people voted it down. The Mohawk one, if you look at that thing, that to me looked to be 20, 30 miles long. Sheriff came out and talked to the school board and said that for them to respond to a activity out here, it would probably take them about 20 minutes. So if you got a 20-mile long one and he's at the other end of it, and you have something going on here, that's not, you know, none of those are good answers. And I know none are good excuses. A few years ago, we went to Oak Ridge with the idea of getting a patrolman. I don't know if you guys were on the board, a patrolman out here for 8 hours. We would own our own policeman or patrolman, deputy, whatever. And it was going to be about $120,000 was the cost. I think that was salary plus the benefits and everything like that. We went to the school and before they got their fencing up and everything, and asked them if they would like to participate, and they said no. But if you're talking $120,000, what you're talking about is about $270 a year that every resident. So you're going to have to get a lot of people are going to say, well, I didn't lose $270. So if it may well have to go to a vote on a election time or something like that we do it. But I looked at Cresswell, and they like you say, they contract with the county. They have 4 full-time deputies and 1 full-time sergeant, so they have 5. They spend $1 million a year. That includes the deputies' salaries, their vehicles, training, certification, equipment, and facilities and other supplies. If it's like it was about 2 or 3, 4 years ago, they have 20 hours of coverage. They do not cover from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning, which seems like that would be a time to be out there. Their tax rate is 2.67, where ours is 2.16. What that means is on a $350,000 home, you pay $950 a year versus $750 that we pay. Their budgeted revenue, like I say, is $1 million. Our budgeted revenue from property, or for their property tax that they get, is $1 million. The property tax we get is about $150,000. They do have a public safety fee that they add to their water bill, and it's they get $430,000 a year from that. So they get about $450 from property tax, $430 from water, and then they pick up another 100 from wherever. So what that would mean for us here, if we went to a higher property tax, another 200, it'd probably be another $200 per home property tax, $200 for your water to help pay for someone. So you're looking at $400 a year. Right now, for Cresswell, the property tax pays for two and a half deputies, or 2 deputies and 1 half sergeant, and the fee does the same thing. It pays for the difference. Cresswell, you know, it's not going to be cheap. So
Oh,
the
I know.
people, if they're going to have to, we're either going to have a fee that we're going to add to their water bill. And I can tell you, for some of the low income people, whenever you start adding 25, 30, you know, $50, whatever it is you add to it to cover that, you know, you're gonna make a lot of people unhappy. And the other thing is when we went to Oak Ridge and we said we wanted a deputy, they said, okay, we'll go out and hire one. And 6 months later, after he's gone through training and the academy and everything, he's yours, but you're paying for that first 6 months for him to go through all the training, because they don't need that person. We need that person. So we would buy that person. He would be going through getting all this training. And then you say, okay, we need one, but you know, and this is the problem is when do we have that guy out there? Do we have him out there during the middle of the night, or is he out there and he shows up at 8 in the morning, and what he does is he takes all of the crimes information down, which is what Lane County does. So I tell you what, we've been through this. I don't know a good answer. I don't know which way to go on it. Can I afford the $400 or whatever? Yeah, I can afford the $400, and would I pay extra? Yeah, I'll pay extra so that we have police coverage. But boy, I tell you, it just, which way do we want to go long term? We tried to go to Springfield to get them to come out and rent a deputy from them. And they said they didn't have any extras and they wouldn't do business with it. The county, like you say, you're looking at, $200,000 probably to rent from one of them. I knew that it was really high as compared to Oak Ridge. Oak Ridge was the cheapest way to go. Like I say, they at that point, they didn't have anybody. So, I tell you what, I'd like to say I have an answer for this one, but we've gone down this road and we've gone around and around. If we need to solicit input, if we need to put it on the ballot to say, do we have a fee? Because I think we're going to need the residents' complete support on this. It can't be something that the council just decides to do. We can increase
No, right.
one and B and things like that, but for us to and Gail, I understand what you're saying and everything like that, and I'm not saying no to it, but I don't know. I honestly don't know which way to go on this.
Well, you know what? No, I fully appreciate that. I appreciate all the information you just shared there because, I know pieces of it, but you obviously have a lot there. Maybe Tim's idea is really the best. We go somehow, but maybe the best thing we can do is somehow explain that to the community. No, I'm not hearing complaints about anything we're not doing. I guess it was I just thought maybe there was, some communication that, we think about this all the time, but there is no simple answer. And it would take a few minutes, to put those kinds of figures together and maybe just put it in the bridge and say, folks, just, this is not a simple answer. And this is the kind of money we're talking about. And this is the kind of impact on everybody's home that we're talking about, and just kind of educate people, not even soliciting. Does that make sense? Sam, you look like you were going to say something.
Yeah, so the bridge goes out to everyone in the Lowell Fall Creek area, correct?
Right.
But we don't have control over all that area. So
right.
The control over is Lowell proper, which should be wonderful, but then that leaves all the very outlying areas who still rely on us for other things.
Well, that's why Jeremy and I were talking about the fact that it should probably be more of a district thing. If we were going to do anything, we would be more of a district type of thing like the fire department is, because we would, we are talking Fall Creek and so forth. They need coverage. It's not just us. And at that point, that would take probably something different than just the city council, I don't know. I just am bringing it up because it's just a forever question on, is there anything? And Dawn, again, I don't feel like you're being negative at all, Dawn. I think it's reality and it's unfortunate, but even communicating how hard this is to put together and how much money it costs. People say, oh, I'd be willing to pay, but I don't think they understand what they're going to have to pay. Just like what Dawn said, you're talking $400, with a 400 or 800 a year.
400, 200 plus 200. 400
Right. And I'm, when we did that survey, everybody was willing to spend $6 or something. I mean, it was so low that, and I get it. We all understand that. Life is expensive and we don't have, not everybody can afford. I mean, $400 would be a big deal to a lot of families.
That's only for the homeowners.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would be passed on to the renters as well, but how would that
Exactly.
to
So
them?
I don't know. You guys, maybe it was just a silly thing to even bring it up. I just,
It's
but
not.
just
We,
because of all that's been going on, everybody's a little freaked out. It's like, what do? We can't hold on to our stuff. The truck that got returned today, he got it back stripped, completely stripped in terms of all of his lights and all the fancy stuff on it. It was, so it's tough. It's really tough. And they don't have any theft insurance. So, call and make sure you have theft insurance on your cars. What, Tim? I'm not trying to run this.
No, you're good. So actually there has been some grumbling in the community because we do have police coming down from Oak Ridge, and some of them I do feel that they feel that we only bring them here to give traffic tickets. I've heard that mentioned multiple times. So that there has been that. That's just a brief mention. My other thing I'd like to say is, doesn't Lon Drott have a uniform already? Couldn't we just deputize him?
we give him a squirt gun.
Just saying. He goes in the whole district already. He already goes in this whole area we're talking
I
about.
think he half does everything else anyway, Tim.
He's got lights on top of his truck, got a uniform, got a badge already.
You'll have to talk to the fire chief about that.
And
Okay.
we know what the answer is. Okay, you guys, I brought it up. I get that it's kind of,
No, I tell you what, the council has gone through this before, and I'm not saying we shouldn't go through it again, but boy, I tell you what, it's just a hard one, because at the very end, what it's going to be is some increases to people's pocketbook to get it done.
yeah, and I knew that. Anyway,
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
hello.
I
I'd
hear
like
you.
to report that the Herald is actually working on this from a standpoint of all along Highway 58. So you'll have that story told sometime in the future.
Okay, thank you, Dean.
oh, that's awesome.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
I'd like to say, if you look at the Fall Creek neighborhood watch, seemed like the only place they'd probably be patrolling is the little Fall Creek Road. So there's a lot of activity over there on that one. Okay, that's for the work session, other business. Before we adjourn, I have one thing I want to put out. There's no need for action or decisions tonight, but this is for introduction only. Right now, Jeremy Cottle is coming up on his 6-month city administrator evaluation, as per included in his contract and salary change. I'd like to consider in a future meeting, the possibility of going one of 3 different ways. One is we have no written evaluation. The city administrator will meet individually with each member of the council in May and June, and either by consensus approval or a formal motion to affirm his performance, has been met and to determine the amount of pay increase. That's the first one. We would not do a formal evaluation. The second one would be an in-house evaluation. We'll take objectives that we listed earlier on, which was taken from the evaluations that we did with Jared Cobb. We'll send them out to the council, all council members, and then someone will compile and facilitate and present them to the city administrator. That's the second one. It'd be a small one. The third one, we'd use an outside facilitator like we've done with Walt Hammond in the past, but I think he's not doing that anymore, so we could probably go to LCOG. We would pay a fee on that, and I think I'm pretty sure it was over $1,000 we paid for Walt to do that. So like I say, we could either do it by a motion consensus, we could have a small questionnaire presentation with the city administrator, or we could have a full-blown one. So, but it's a 6-month, it's more of a progress report than it is a full evaluation. So the biggest part of it is when you write one of these up, and I used to do the 6-month ones, you say they're working on this, they're starting to do on this. We're at the year and a half or 1 year later, then we'll have a full-blown one. I anticipate where we'd say this has been done, that's been done, this has been done, and he's done all these things. But anyway, just for consider which way you want to go, we'll put it on the next agenda to consider and look at how we want to proceed with his evaluation. But that, like I say, it's in the contract. We need to do it, but it doesn't say how it has to be done, nor does any of our paperwork, charter, or anything like that dictate how it has to be done. In fact, I don't know if evaluations are in it, besides for regular employees. I haven't looked at that part of it in a while. But anyway, that's all I have. Anybody else? Hey, Gail.
I know, I need to shut up.
Oh.
No, just one question, Jeremy. If we chose to do, like each of us just come sit down with you, are you comfortable with that in regard to not having anything written down? Or we could do some kind of maybe gather our thoughts if you wanted something for the record, but just as we all decide or think through how we would do this, would that be something you would be comfortable with if we didn't have a formal written?
I would absolutely be open to that option.
Okay. I just thought it was good to know. I know just right off the top, I kind of like that idea, just to throw it out there, but we'll let everybody decide. Okay, I'm done now. Dawn, I've been hanging around you too long.
One thing about each person meeting with them is when we do a regular evaluation, usually what happens is the whole council meets as a group. We blend the comments together so that once it's blended, you don't have the chance to say, that sentence there was mine, and I'd like to discuss that sentence as much as you could if you sat down with him and say, okay, here's my concerns, here's my questions, thank you for doing this, and whatever, thing like that. So,
well, in
like
my mind, this is kind of a midpoint, sort of, so to speak, and so it's not usually as formal, and it's an opportunity to just communicate more than anything. But I wanted to make sure Jeremy would be comfortable with not having something formally written, because that's probably what that would do if we chose to do that. So
we would make a motion. It'd be a formal motion. Everybody agrees that he's meeting expectations and his salary increase should be whatever amount, and that would be the extent of it, I think.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Anyway, we'll discuss that in more detail, but if we're going to do the full blown, we need to get on a calendar. So anyway, anybody else have anything? We won't have to do anything on the 18th. We must have covered everything tonight. Okay. Anyway, that's it. Let's see. We're adjourned.
You guys might want to say something.
Hey, you want to say anything?
Oh, the public?
Yeah. Would the public like to speak?
Yeah, I would.
Okay, let's hear it, public.
My name's Paulo Regan. I'm at 62 East Third. I need some clarification on this library city hall thing.
Okay.
Hoping this is just temporary.
It is over time. Because we want to put a real one over on the other side
All
of the
right, I
parking
just
lot.
want to be clear on
Yeah.
that.
Talking,
Yeah.
build a new city
Yeah.
hall.
All right, that's still a go.
Right
Yeah,
after
we-
we get
the-
our 4 cops.
Right. The other thing is, as far as the thefts and the sheriffs and all that,
Uh-huh.
I don't think it's a city issue. It's a county issue. And I think that, most of the smaller cities in Lane County need to get together and put a lot of pressure on the county commissioners to get more law enforcement involved out into the rural communities.
That would be best.
It would be. So let's do it. All right. There's been a lot of destruction last week at Paul Fisher Park, as you probably know. And as you know, I'm the old man sitting in front of his garage watching all this. And finally this week, I had to go over there. I called a group of kids together. I talked to them about the destruction going on. I said, it's time to enjoy, not to destroy this park. They managed to pull out, which is concreted in, one of the center poles in the horseshoe pits. And that's when I had it, and I walked over and I told them about it. So I'm not sure what can be done, maybe something in the bridge about please watch your kids, which they don't, because I watch parents get together over there and they're chit chatting back and forth around their phones or whatever people do on these phones. And they're clueless as to what's going on, you know? And so I think something maybe in the bridge might be acceptable to remind the parents as well as the students, maybe a little talking over at the school. Have them talk to the kids about a little respect to property stuff and see if that helps out. And now it's late, I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Thank you, Hall. Anybody else? Okay. Not seeing anything, not hearing anything. We're adjourned at 9:25. We earned our pay tonight.
Good meeting, folks. Good night.
Good night.
Night.
We just had you sitting over there with the remote control, and we started getting